is it's important to represent and to pay it forward.
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Chat with Nick. And oh my gosh, I am so excited because we have someone who is running to be a judge in the city of LA and the county of Los Angeles. And let's all welcome Miss Irene Lee.
Hi, Mick. Thanks for having me here. And hi, everybody. So glad to be able to talk to you today.
We met at the other documentary that we are filming called The Faces of Hate documentary, and it's about Stop Asian Hate. Can you tell us about that moment that changed your life?
I think the most impactful moment for me is when I was in the 5th grade. I grew up in the Koreatown area, and I went to elementary school in Koreatown. And I remember April 29th, 1992, the LA riots, seeing the smoke, seeing the aftermath. The day after that, my dad drove my family around, and we could see all the damage throughout Koreatown. And even as a child, I understood what it meant, that the government, that law enforcement, it didn't show up for us there, and the importance of having representation. And that message really stayed with me and carried me through in my journey into public service. And what I learned from that time motivates me to make sure that I represent the community well, that I represent everybody, to make sure that people have a voice when it comes to the justice system.
What was that moment like? Can you take us through that moment? Because that must have been so impactful. And you were just in 5th grade. Most kids don't really pay attention to their surroundings, let alone want to do something about what is going on with society at that point.
I think for me, it's seeing not that, obviously I saw the damage and I remember what that looked like. But what's also memorable for me is seeing how it affected my parents and their friends and the people they knew that really tried to build their lives and their businesses in Koreatown. And so I think that it was just clear to me, even though I didn't know how to verbalize it in elementary school, what it means when a community does not have representation. Because many years later, after I became a DA, I met one of the first Korean prosecutors in the LA DA's office. And I didn't realize what I wouldn't call it burden, but what an obligation he had to the community, because he was only one of 2 Korean prosecutors in the LA DA's office. And he got on the Korean radio and was trying to tell everybody in the community how to protect themselves. So to me, it's so clear and important that we have representation. And again, I don't remember the exact conversations that my parents had or their friends had. I just remember what I felt. And I remembered, going to church and going to different community meetings. And there was all this discussion about how to make sure something like this doesn't happen again. And we also had a lot of community meetings with people all across different ethnic groups, because I think for the Korean community, it was also eye-opening to make sure that we have partnerships. We can't live in a bubble. We can't live in a silo. It's really important to have other allies. So again, I couldn't articulate it, but this is what I felt and the lessons that I come away with.
What year was that when you were in 5th grade?
1992.
So I remember 1992. That was the LA riots, right? Can you take us through what was happening in Koreatown? Because I lived all the way in the valley, and we were seeing things that were happening in LA. And that was also during the time when there were a lot of gangs in LA. And that's probably one of the reasons that we were told to really go to those areas down there in LA. Can you walk us through what was going on in Koreatown during that time?
Well, I can only tell you that, Koreatown was, really thriving, and a lot of families were trying to just build the American dream. In terms of my family, you know, my parents were working hard to make sure that they could provide for me and my three siblings. And, you know, there were the iconic places in Koreatown, like the Koreatown Plaza on Western, and other organizations that had been established, like the Korean Federation. And so even though the community was big, it felt small because we were tied to churches, we were tied to one another, and it really felt like a family. Like I knew so many people that I grew up with. Like I have fond memories with them and the stores and the restaurants that we went to. I remember the smells, but that's me as a child. I couldn't tell you, you know, what the economics were at the time or things like that. I can only tell you what I recall being in the fifth grade. But I had very fond memories up until that moment in April of when that happened. And I was shielded from whatever other challenges that the community members were going through because we didn't talk about those things in my house. You know, it was really when this happened that we're forced to discuss, you know, the aftermath.
From that time, what was it like in elementary? Were you in a predominantly Korean school?
No, it was mixed. It was pretty diverse. I mean, more actually, I would say it was maybe a little bit more white, but there were several Korean classmates of mine, but I would say it was diverse.
Yes, because I remember what was happening in Los Angeles back then. What were your interests back then? Did you think that you wanted to go into public service right away, or did you dabble into other things?
You know, I didn't know in the fifth grade that I was going to go into public service. I just wanted to help. I mean, I remember one of my mentors when I was in high school said, "What do you want to do when you're, you know, basically a grown up?" And I said, "I just want to help people, whatever that looks like." I wasn't quite sure. I thought maybe going into something in healthcare or medicine. And I couldn't imagine at that time of being a lawyer. I didn't think that was attainable for me. But behind all that was the sense of wanting to help. And I think it's really when I went to law school and did worked at a firm, and I was encouraged by one of the people there to try working at the DA's office. That really put me into a career in public service. But it's not something that I thought of at that age. But I am the oldest of four children. Or I'm sorry, I'm the oldest of four children, like I told you earlier. And I have that protective spirit, you know, being the oldest. I would cook for my siblings. I would take care of them. I would watch out for them. If they got bullied, you know, I want to be there for them. And so I think that sense of being protective and being kind of like a mama bear, that has served me well in wanting to serve the community.
That sense of being a mama bear, did that carry through all the way until college, until after college?
Yes, my friends I went to college at UC San Diego, and my friends called me mom because I didn't know how to shut that off, so to speak, because I'm always taking care of people, you know, in whatever capacity. I also serve as the president of the Korean Prosecutors Association, and I'm always trying to make sure that people are taken care of, that I help shepherd them through their careers too, because I want to make sure that they have access to things that I didn't know about, you know, when I started out. And I feel that responsibility to the next generation of lawyers and people that come through and intern with us. I think that the most important thing you can do in public service is not only serve, you know, like as being a prosecutor, the victims and making sure the defendant's rights are upheld, but it's making that big impact to the community. And so that's definitely a motivating factor for me.
Being the mama bear that you are, what was your thought process like in deciding what major to choose, coming from high school to college?
So, like I kind of referenced earlier, I thought I was going to go into career in healthcare, medicine, but organic chemistry kicked my butt. And I did major in psychology, but thankfully psychology is very, user-friendly for many different career paths. And I decided at one point that I was going to apply to law school. And in law school, I was working at an insurance firm. But at the firm, one of the partners had encouraged me to try interning at the DA's office. So that really led me there to that point in my career.
Speaking of internships, how did that experience help you? Because we have a lot of our audience who are parents, who have children, who are in high school, who are looking for internships or things that they can do in order to help with their application process for college. How did that experience help you?
Well, to me, it set me on a whole career path that I had never dreamt about, to be able to be a voice for the most vulnerable and to make sure that the laws are upheld. I would encourage parents to be open-minded to letting their children intern at the DA's office. It's an opportunity to learn how courts work. It's an opportunity to see what it takes to investigate cases, to make sure that cases are ready for trial. And it was that exposure to court that got me excited about public service and having the opportunity to intern in the hate crimes unit, where I was able to very proactively work on cases with the deputy district attorney there. He took me everywhere. He took me through crime scenes. He took me to meetings, and I got to sit through several trials with him. And so I would say to parents everywhere, think about, regardless of whether your child ends up being an attorney, just that opportunity to give back in a way and to see the importance of advocacy. I think it's really important. And for me, I hadn't done a lot of public speaking before. Mm-hmm. And so I think these days, it's really important, especially that you have a voice and you're able to speak up. So it gives, I think, college law students that opportunity to see that. And we do take interns at the DA's office starting, I believe, at 16 years old in high school.
Moving forward, you went through pre-law. What was your major pre-law?
So I didn't have a pre-law track. I just majored in psychology. And you just need to take your standard prerequisite courses in college. And then I went to law school.
When you got your law degree and you passed the bar, and passing the bar is another thing, right?
It's another thing. Yes, I don't ever want to think about that again.
Oh my gosh. Because I have some friends who have taken the bar several times and they continue to be JDs. I have a sense of how difficult that is, but then I have another friend who took the bar and he just one take and he was like in the top 5. How does that happen?
Well, I think there are a lot of theories, but I would say to those who didn't pass the first time around, just keep trying. And hopefully you have a good community around you to help, cheer you on and make sure that you have the time set aside to study and get ready for it.
What were your first experiences coming out of college and passing the bar?
So after law school, like I said, I interned at the DA's office and I was a senior clerk there. So I did that clerkship for about a year or so. And then I became a deputy district attorney. And the early part of the career, you handle standard misdemeanors, learn how to do hearings, learn how to speak. I remember, being so wobbly during my first trial. I was extremely nervous, but after I got through the first one, then you just keep going through them. And I specialized in domestic violence and child abuse cases.
Why that specialty, child abuse and domestic cases?
My mom, when we were growing up, she volunteered a lot with domestic violence shelters and, families who are going through different challenges. And so I really think that my heart for people impacted by that came from her, just seeing it and being part of it. I understand that it's complicated when people go through these family disputes and family struggles. There's so many different factors going on. I think just from what my mom planted in us, it drew me into doing those type of cases.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it's the mama bear in you that led you to that kind of specialty?
I'm pretty sure it had a lot to do with it. Especially I've had cases where I've had young children have to testify. I had a case where a 5-year-old boy had to testify, and he was so scared. And it's that protective spirit, making sure that he feels comfortable and safe to be able to speak the truth.
That is so heartwarming to hear about that. I commend you for that protective spirit that you have, because not a lot of people have that. What challenges did you have being one of the few Asian Americans who are probably in your field or at that level that you're at?
So thankfully, the DA's office has made a lot of strides. There are more Asian prosecutors there now. And at the time that I was there, I don't recall the exact numbers, but definitely more than from 30 plus years ago when the riots happened. But there are instances of dealing with implicit bias, but I think that we're a lot more proactive now as a community and as a society to make sure that we try to address it. But yes, I've had challenges in my career where maybe I'm underestimated or people talk to me differently. But instead of being sort of torn up about it, it inspires me to want to do better and to want to make sure that like the next generation of attorneys, that they're ready for the challenges that come their way, because it helps so much to have mentorship and people who are helping you through the process than to try to go through those situations alone.
You mentioned mentors and people who help you along the way. What did you learn from these people who were helping you?
I've learned so much from them. I would say that I learned, what it is to be an attorney with integrity, strong ethics, dedicated to ensuring justice for everybody, whether you're a victim or the person charged with a crime. I've seen so much graciousness from my mentors, and so much dedication. All the mentors that I've had along the way have such a strong work ethic, and it inspires me to do better, because I'm thinking if they're going to put their name behind me and say I trained Irene, well, I better do well.
Yes.
I can't let them down. So I
Yes.
want to make sure I do a good job.
Going back to when you were a child in 5th grade, you having experienced what you've gone through, what is your purpose now? Are you living your purpose or your mission in life now?
My biggest purpose that I see is it's important to represent and to pay it forward. And there have been so many wonderful people who've sort of paved the way for me, whether they're other Asians or women that I look up to, just so many people. And so my mission is to make sure that I represent well my community, the people who train me, and to make sure that I make an impact so that the next generation, no matter who they are, that they're inspired and can see an opportunity for themselves in the legal system, that they don't feel that it's far from them, that they find that it's accessible, and that they see the importance of having their own representation in this service.
Now that you're in a position to run for one of the judges in the city of LA and county of Los Angeles, where can people find you?
So I am running in Office 14. There are a number of offices up for election this year. So again, Office 14 for Los Angeles County. They could find me on my website, which is www.irenelee4judge.com. So IRENELEEFORJUDGE.com. I'm also on a number of different voter guides like LA Times, LAist, with the LA Daily News, Ballotpedia. I also have an Instagram, which is Irene Lee 4Judge, so the number 4, and then Facebook Irene Lee 4Judge, but the 4 is spelled out FOR.
Thank you so much for being with us today and sharing your wisdom and your experiences. And to our audience out there, if you have any dream, go for it. And mentors and other people are willing to help you also. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you in the next episode. Bye.
This episode is brought to you by Tang and Java. Thank you for watching. And don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe so you don't miss out.